Do you hear it? The echoes of the past, the whispers of forgotten truths, fragments of memories lost in the shadows. Welcome to BRAINROT, Echoes, where we bring you stories long buried, unravel mysteries cloaked by time, and guide you through the darkest corners of the mind and the universe. Each video is more than just content. It's an echo resonating deep within, urging you to question, to wonder, to explore. Backend index pointing right, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and join us in listening to the echoes the world tried to silence. Trojan horse deception, humanity's unexpected lesson. So you're telling me that after all the diplomatic posturing, all the handshakes and toasts with our fancy champagne glasses, which, by the way, they couldn't even hold properly with those tentacle things, they were planning to stab us in the back the whole time? Captain James Harrington leaned back in his chair, the metal creaking ominously under his weight. The artificial gravity on the Tenacious was acting up again, making everyone feel about 15% heavier than they should. Yes, sir, Lieutenant Olivia Reed replied, her expression deadpan as she passed him the intelligence report. The Varaxians consider lying during peace negotiations to be the highest form of military strategy. It's like their version of chess, except the pieces are actual battleships, and the checkmate is planetary annihilation. Fantastic! Harrington flipped through the report, each page confirming what human intelligence had suspected for months. And we're the only ones who figured this out? Well, sir, to be fair, we're the only ones who bothered to learn their language beyond the diplomat's phrase book. Reed suppressed a smirk. The Galactic Confederation representatives were too busy congratulating themselves on brokering peace in our time. God, I hate those guys. Harrington tossed the report onto his desk, always swooping in with their superior technology and condescending advice, treating us like we're children who just discovered fire. To be fair, sir, compared to some species in the Confederation, we did just discover fire. That's not the point, Reed. Harrington stood up and walked to the viewport, staring out at the stars. The vastness of space always helped him think. The point is that we may be new to the galactic community, but we've been stabbing each other in the back since we climbed down from the trees. We know a sketchy deal when we see one. It had been only 37 years since humanity's first contact with alien life. The Galactic Confederation had found Earth just as humans were taking their first tentative steps into the solar system. The Confederation, a loose alliance of over 200 sentient species, had greeted humanity with what appeared to be open arms. But Captain Harrington, like many humans, had learned quickly that in the vast theater of galactic politics, humanity was viewed as the amusing new pet, quaint, somewhat primitive, but entertaining to have around. So what do we do now, sir? Reed asked, interrupting his thoughts. The Varaxian fleet is scheduled to arrive at the demilitarized zone in 72 hours for the official treaty signing. The Confederation Oversight Committee will be there, along with representatives from all major Earth governments. And the Varaxians will be bringing their entire 7th Battle Group, ostensibly as an honor guard. Harrington made air quotes with his fingers, which, according to your intelligence, will then proceed to bypass our defensive grid using the access codes we're obliged to provide under the treaty and commence orbital bombardment of our major cities. That's the plan, yes. Harrington turned from the viewport, a slow smile spreading across his face. Well then, I think it's time we showed the galaxy that humanity didn't survive thousands of years of our own without learning a few tricks. Reed raised an eyebrow. Sir, give me a secure line to Admiral Blackwood, and I need every department head in the war room in 30 minutes. Yes, sir. May I ask what you're planning? Something the Varaxians and the Confederation won't expect. Harrington's smile turned predatory. We're going to beat them at their own game. Varaxian Supreme Commander Zether, standing on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, his forearms crossed over his armored thorax. The viewport showed the blue-green jewel of Earth growing larger as they approached. Such a primitive world, yet so full of resources and strategic value. Supreme Commander, his communications officer called. We're receiving the approach vectors and defense grid access codes from the human authorities. Excellent. Zether's mandibles clicked in their species equivalent of a smile. Send the confirmation response exactly as we rehearsed. Remember, we must maintain the deception until the final moment. Of course, Supreme Commander. The officer's tentacles danced over the control panel. Transmission sent. The humans have acknowledged receipt and welcome us to their solar system. How courteous of them to make their own subjugation so convenient. Zether turned to his strategic advisor. Is everything prepared for the assault? Yes, Supreme Commander. Once we reach the treaty-signing position, our ships will have optimal firing solutions on all major population centers. The humans' planetary defense grid will be offline due to the access codes they provided. We estimate total capitulation within 6 standard hours. And the Confederation observers? They will testify to the human surrender as arranged. The official record will show that Earth violated the treaty first, giving us justification for our preemptive defense measures. Perfect. Zether's inner eyelids blinked in satisfaction. The humans have no idea what's coming. Such a young species, so naive in the ways of interstellar politics. His tactical officer approached cautiously. Supreme Commander, I've been analyzing the defense grid access codes provided by the humans. Is there a problem? Not exactly, sir. They match our intelligence perfectly. However, there's something odd about them. Zether's antenna twitched in annoyance. Explain. The codes follow the expected pattern, but they contain an unusual number of references to Earth cultural elements. For instance, one sequence translates roughly to Trojan horse in their dominant language. Is this significant? The tactical officer hesitated. I'm not certain, Supreme Commander. Our cultural database indicates it's a reference to an ancient human military deception, a hollow wooden animal filled with soldiers, presented as a gift to enemies who then brought it inside their fortifications. Zether dismissed the concern with a wave of his upper right arm. A quaint coincidence. The humans are known for their sentimentality. Perhaps some programmer thought it amusing to include such references in their defense systems. As you say, Supreme Commander. The officer continued. Continue on our approach vector. Alert me when we reach the designated coordinates for the treaty signing. As the officer moved away, Zether turned back to the viewport. Soon, Earth would be another conquest for the Varaxian Empire, another primitive species brought to heel. The Confederation would protest, of course, but they would accept the fait accompli as they always did, unwilling to risk war with the Varaxians over such an insignificant newcomer to galactic society. What could humans possibly know about real war and deception? They who had barely left their own planetary system? Back on the Tenacious, Captain Harrington stood in the ship's war room, surrounded by his senior officers and a holographic display of the solar system. The approaching Varaxian fleet was represented by red markers, while the human defense forces were shown in blue. Ladies and gentlemen, Harrington addressed the room. As you've all been briefed, we have credible intelligence that the Varaxians intend to use this peace treaty as cover for a surprise attack. What you haven't been told is that we've known this for months. Murmurs rippled through the assembled Earth officers. Intelligence intercepted their plans shortly after negotiations began. Harrington continued. Admiral Blackwood and the Joint Chiefs made the decision to proceed with the treaty charade while we prepared our response. Sir, Commander Davis, the ship's executive officer, spoke up. If we knew they were planning to attack, why not just confront them or prepare an obvious defense? 2 reasons, Commander. First, because the Galactic Confederation has made it very clear that they consider humanity the aggressor in this conflict. They dismissed our evidence as fabrication and would potentially sanction U.S. And the second reason, sir? Harrington's lips curled into a tight smile. Because we've been setting a trap, and the Varaxians are about to walk right into it. He tapped a control panel, and the holographic display zoomed in on Earth's orbit. Operation Wooden Horse is now active. The defense grid access codes we provided to the Varaxians are genuine. They'll work exactly as advertised. What the Varaxians don't know, Lieutenant Commander Sophia Hayes, the tactical officer, stepped forward, is that we've completely reconfigured our planetary defense system over the past month. The old defense grid has been replaced with a decoy network. It looks operational from the outside, but it's basically window dressing. Our actual defensive capabilities have been relocated to stealth platforms positioned throughout the inner solar system. And those platforms are currently invisible to Varaxian sensors, Harrington added. Once they make their move, we'll have them surrounded. What about the civilian population, sir? Asked the ship's medical officer, Dr. Reyes. If they're planning orbital bombardment. Every major city on Earth has been evacuated over the past 2 weeks, Harrington explained. We've moved civilians to hardened underground shelters, disguising it as routine emergency drills. The Varaxians will be targeting empty buildings. Reed spoke up. Sir, the Confederation observers are still a complication. They're scheduled to witness the treaty signing aboard the diplomatic vessel Unity in Earth orbit. That's where it gets interesting, Lieutenant. Harrington expanded the holographic display to show a diplomatic vessel position between Earth and the approaching Varaxian fleet. The Confederation thinks they're coming to oversee a historic peace treaty. Instead, they're going to get front row seats to a Varaxian sneak attack, and our response. Commander Davis frowned. Sir, with all due respect, this is a huge gamble. If anything goes wrong, it's not a gamble, Commander. It's a calculated risk. The Varaxians have underestimated us from day one. They think we're naive newcomers who don't understand the cutthroat nature of galactic politics. Harrington looked around the meeting room, meeting each officer's eyes. What they don't realize is that humanity wrote the book on deception, misdirection, and fighting dirty when necessary. He pointed to the holographic representation of Earth. For thousands of years, we fought each other with everything from sticks and stones to nuclear weapons. We've mastered the art of warfare in a way these species can't comprehend. They've had interstellar peace enforced by the Confederation for millennia. We've had to claw our way up from the mud, fighting for every inch of progress. The captain's voice became quieter, more intense. The Varaxians think they're the predators here. It's time to show them that they've been hunting tigers while thinking they were after house cats. Aboard the Confederation diplomatic vessel Unity, Ambassador Telner of the Zinthari species adjusted his environmental suit uncomfortably. The atmosphere aboard the ship was carefully regulated to accommodate the various biological needs of the dozens of species present, but it never quite felt right to him. A historic day, wouldn't you agree, Ambassador Martinez? He said to the human representative standing beside him. Ambassador Elena Martinez nodded politely. Indeed, Earth looks forward to peaceful relations with the Varaxian Empire. Telner's skin slightly shifted colors, the Zinthari equivalent of a knowing smile. Your species has adapted quickly to interstellar diplomacy. Most newcomers to the Confederation struggle with the nuances. Humans are quick learners, Ambassador. Yes, though sometimes I wonder if you fully grasp the complexities involved. The Varaxians are an ancient power with millennia of diplomatic experience. Martinez smiled thinly. We may be new to the stars, Ambassador, but human diplomacy has its own long history. Of course. Telner's tone was patronizing, though nothing on the scale you're dealing with now. The Varaxian Empire spans hundreds of worlds. Earth is but one small planet. Quality over quantity, Ambassador. Before Telner could respond, a chime sounded, indicating the imminent arrival of the Varaxian delegation. The various ambassadors and representatives moved toward their designated positions in the ship's grand diplomatic chamber. The Varaxian delegation arrived with typical military precision, led by Supreme Commander Zether himself. The massive insectoid alien towered over most of the other representatives, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's lights. Welcome aboard the Unity, Supreme Commander, the Confederation Overseer, a gelatinous entity named Morbilis, gurgled through its translation device. We are gathered here to witness the historic peace treaty between the Varaxian Empire and Earth. Zether's mandibles clicked as he spoke. The Varaxian Empire is pleased to end this unfortunate conflict. We look forward to a new era of cooperation with humanity. Martinez stepped forward. On behalf of Earth, I extend our sincere gratitude to the Confederation for mediating this peace process. We are eager to sign the treaty and begin this new chapter in our relations with the Varaxian Empire. The formalities continued with speeches from various representatives. Throughout it all, Martinez maintained a pleasant diplomatic smile, even as she received updates through her neural implant about the Varaxian battle fleet maneuvering into attack positions under the guise of an honor formation. Status report, she subvocalized, the message transmitted securely to Earth Command. Vorik's fleet is in position. They're running final checks on the defense grid access codes. Estimate they'll make their move in approximately 20 minutes. And our countermeasures? All systems ready. Operation Wooden Horse is green across the board. Understood. Martinez out. She refocused on the ceremony, just as Supreme Commander Zether was concluding his speech about lasting peace and mutual prosperity. And now, Overseer Morbilis announced, we shall proceed with the signing of the treaty. As the diplomatic proceedings continued, tens of thousands of kilometers away, the Varaxian battle fleet had arranged itself in a precise formation around Earth. Each ship had arranged itself for optimal firing solutions on major population centers. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Zether received confirmation that all was ready. Supreme Commander, his communications officer reported, we have verified the human defense grid access codes. Their planetary defenses can be deactivated at your command. Excellent. Zether turned to his tactical officer. Commence to execute attack plan. On my signal, deactivate their defense grid and orbital bombardment. Yes, Supreme Commander. Back on the Unity, Ambassador Martinez held the ceremonial treaty document with deliberate slowness. She prepared to pick up the stylus to sign. At that precise moment, Zether gave a subtle hand signal to his aide, who transmitted the attack command to the waiting fleet. Throughout the Varaxian fleet, weapon systems powered up as they transmitted the codes to deactivate Earth's defense grid. On the tactical displays, the grid winked out, leaving the planet seemingly defenseless. Defense grid successfully deactivated. Supreme Commander, the tactical officer reported. All weapon systems have target lock, awaiting your final command. Zether's mandibles spread in the Varaxian expression of triumph. Commence attack. The first salvos launched from the Varaxian ships, streaking toward Earth's atmosphere. On the Unity, alarms suddenly blared as the ship's sensors detected weapons fire. What is the meaning of this? Overseer Morbilis hissed, his gelatinous form quivering in agitation. Zether turned to face the assembled diplomats. The Varaxian Empire claims Earth by right of conquest. Any interference will be considered an act of war against our empire. The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives from various species protested or tried to contact their governments. Ambassador Martinez, however, remained surprisingly calm. Ambassador Zether, she said, her voice cutting through the pandemonium, I believe you've made a serious miscalculation. The Supreme Commander's compound eyes fixed on her. Your defenses are down, human. Your cities will be ash within the hour. What possible miscalculation could there be? Martinez smiled, and for the first time, there was nothing diplomatic about it. You assumed we didn't know you were lying. At that moment, throughout the solar system, hundreds of previously hidden weapons platforms decloaked. The Varaxian fleet suddenly found itself surrounded on all sides by Earth's true defense force. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, alarms blared as sensors detected the new threats. Supreme Commander, the tactical officer cried. Unknown weapons platforms decloaking all around our fleet. Impossible. Their defense grid is down. Sir, these aren't part of the defense grid we targeted. These are something else, and they're everywhere. Before Zether could respond, a new communication came through on all Varaxian channels. The face of Captain James Harrington appeared on the main view screen. Attention, Varaxian fleet. This is Captain Harrington of Earth Defense Forces. You're currently targeted by 347 autonomous weapons platforms. Your shields are calibrated for our documented weapon systems, but I think you'll find these are something new we've been working on. Zether's mandibles clicked furiously. This is treachery. We had an agreement. Yes, we did, Harrington replied calmly. and you planned to violate it from the start. We knew that. In fact, we were counting on it. You cannot falsely prove. Actually, Harrington's smile amplified. We can. You see, Ambassador Martinez has been broadcasting this entire conversation to the Confederation Oversight Committee. They're hearing every word. Back on the Unity, the diplomatic chamber had gone silent as Harrington's transmission was redirected there as well. The assembled representatives watched in shock as the exchange continued. Your attack on a supposedly defenseless planet during a peace treaty signing isn't exactly subtle, Harrington continued. But just in case there was any doubt, we've been monitoring your internal communications for months. We have recordings of your entire war council planning this attack. Zether's compound eyes widened. That's impossible. Our communications are encrypted with quantum keys. Yes, they are. Unfortunately for you, your encryption algorithms were compromised 6 months ago. We've been reading your mail ever since. In the diplomatic chamber, Overseer Morbilis turned his gelatinous form towards Zether. Supreme Commander, is this true? Did you orchestrate an attack during a Confederation-sanctioned peace treaty? The humans are clearly lying. Zether protested. Ambassador Martinez stepped forward. Then perhaps you can explain why your fleet just fired on Earth? Our sensors recorded everything, as did the Unity systems. The evidence was damning, and Zether knew it. His mandibles clicked in agitation as he considered his options. What are your terms, human? He finally asked. Harrington, immediate withdrawal of all Varaxian forces from the solar system. A genuine peace treaty, one that will be monitored not just by the Confederation, but by independent verification teams. In reparations for this act of aggression, the Varaxian Empire does not pay reparations. Zether snarled. Then perhaps the Empire would prefer we demonstrate what our new weapons platforms can do, Harrington suggested mildly. Your ships are surrounded, and your shields aren't calibrated for what we're about to throw at you. So what's it going to be? In the tense silence that followed, Ambassador Telner leaned toward Martinez. How did you know? He whispered. The Varaxians have used this strategy 17 times in the last millennium. No species has ever detected their true intentions before it was too late. Martinez smiled. Ambassador, humanity's history is written in blood and deception. We've been lying to and betraying each other for thousands of years. Did you really think we wouldn't recognize when someone was trying to pull the same trick on us? Captain Harrington stood at attention in the Oval Office as the president of the United Earth Alliance reviewed the after-action report. So the trap worked perfectly? President Nkosi said, setting down the tablet. Yes, Madam President. The Varaxians have withdrawn from our system and agreed to the new treaty terms. The Confederation Oversight Committee is still in an uproar over the whole incident, but they can't deny what happened. I imagine not, President Nkosi mused. And what about our new friends? How are they adjusting to the revelation that humanity isn't quite as naive as they thought? There's been a notable shift in diplomatic communications, Harrington reported. Several species that previously wouldn't give us the time of day are suddenly very interested in mutual defense agreements. Nothing motivates respect like a little fear, the president mused. And the Varaxians? They're licking their wounds, ma'am. Their reputation within the Confederation has taken a significant hit. It seems they've used this exact strategy multiple times before, always successfully. Being outplayed at their own game has caused quite a stir in their political hierarchy. Excellent. The president stood and walked to the window, looking out at the rebuilt Washington Monument. You know, Captain, when we first made contact with alien life, most of humanity thought it would be a new era of peace and enlightenment, the end of our troubled history. Instead, we found out the galaxy isn't so different from Earth, Harrington said. Just bigger. Exactly. The same old games of power and deception, just played with more advanced technology. The Confederation species have had it easy for too long. They've forgotten what it's like to fight for survival every day, to suspect every smile and question every gift. Humanity hasn't had that luxury. Harrington agreed. No, we haven't. Our history is bloody and brutal. but it's made us strong. It's made us suspicious. And in this case, that suspicion saved us. The president returned to her desk. The Varaxians won't be the last to underestimate us. No, ma'am, I don't think they will. Good work, Captain. Your operation was brilliant. A modern-day Trojan horse indeed. Harrington allowed himself a small smile. Thank you, Madam President, though I can't take full credit. The intelligence operatives who uncovered the plot deserve most of the recognition. They'll receive it, I assure you. But your tactical plan was inspired. She sat back down. You're dismissed, Captain. Get some rest. I suspect the galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place for humanity. As Harrington left the Oval Office, he couldn't help but think about how quickly things had changed. Just 37 years ago, humanity had been the new kids on the block, wide-eyed and naive in the face of an ancient galactic community. Now, they were forcing that community to reevaluate everything they knew about the upstart species from Earth. Yes, humanity was new to the stars. Yes, they leveraged the technological advancements of species that had been traveling between worlds for millennia. But what they lacked in technology, they made up for in cunning, adaptability, and a hard-earned skepticism born from thousands of years of conflict. The Varaxians had thought humans were easy prey. Instead, they'd awoken a sleeping tiger, and the galaxy would never be the same. On the observation deck of the Tenacious, now in orbit around Mars, Captain Harrington stood with Lieutenant Reed, watching the distant blue dot of Earth. Have you seen the latest reports from the Confederation Assembly? Reed asked. I've been avoiding them, Harrington admitted. I can only take so much diplomatic posturing in one day. They're interesting readings, sir. It seems our little trick with the Varaxians has caused quite a stir. Several of the elder species are officially protesting our deceptive tactics. Harrington snorted. Rich coming from them, especially after they were perfectly willing to look the other way while the Varaxians planned to bombard our cities. That's the best part, sir. The newer Confederation members, especially those who've had run-ins with the Varaxians before, are publicly supporting us. There's talk of a power shift in the making. Well, Harrington smiled. Seems like we've made some friends and some enemies. The usual result of any successful human endeavor, sir. A comfortable silence fell between them as they continued to gaze out at the stars. Finally, Harrington spoke again. You know what bothers me most about this whole situation, Reed? What's that, sir? The assumption that because we're new to interstellar travel, we must be naive about conflict and deception. He shook his head. If they'd done even basic research on human history, they'd know better. To be fair, sir, most species in the Confederation have historical records going back millions of years. Our written history is barely a blip in comparison. Quality over quantity, Lieutenant. We've packed more deception and warfare into our short history than most of these species have experienced in eons of interstellar existence. Reed smiled. As Ambassador Martinez put it in her address to the Confederation Assembly, humanity didn't survive to reach the stars by being trusting fools. I'll drink to that. Harrington pulled a flask from his pocket. Care for a toast, Lieutenant? Drinking on duty, sir. Special occasion. He offered her the flask. To humanity, too stubborn to die, too suspicious to be fooled, and too damn ornery to be pushed around by a bunch of condescending aliens. Reed took the flask with a grin. I'll drink to that. As they passed the flask back and forth, the stars continued their eternal dance outside the viewport. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was still reeling from the revelation that humans weren't the easy mark everyone had assumed. And Captain James Harrington couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, paranoia and all, and the neighborhood would never be the same again. You know what the best part is, sir? Reed said after a moment. What's that now? They'll never know when we're actually being honest and when we're just playing along. Harrington laughed. Welcome to diplomacy, Earth style. Trust no one, verify everything, and always have a backup plan. Humanity, Reed declared under her breath. What was that, Lieutenant? Nothing. She straightened, fighting back a smile. Sir, just thinking that it's a good day to be human. Harrington looked back to the stars, where the future of humanity now lay. It certainly is, Lieutenant. It certainly is.